what's been happening over the last year looks like it was taken out of a Hollywood script, because the nature of the operations that we've seen, which I think is a result and a consequence of the way Israel's enemies operate, requires a level of creativity and innovation in military tactics and in the battlefield that we're not used to seeing in what we thought of were wars, right? When we think of wars as at least conventional battles, we have soldiers, they have soldiers, we have tanks, they have tanks. That's how people fight. But here, because of the nature of the way Hamas operates, because of the nature of the way Hezbollah operates, Israel is compelled and finds itself doing things that really look like they're taken out of the last James Bond movie or Mission Impossible film. And another example is exactly what you spoke about, the cache and this bunker underneath the Al-Sahel Hospital in Beirut, where the IDF claims and put out this 3D image of what the bunker looks like, but where Hezbollah is believed to store about $500 million, $500 million in cash. This is, while surprising that Hezbollah would do this maybe under a hospital, it's not surprising that these terrorist organizations have such huge reserves of cash, gold, crypto, different currencies, different types of passports, different everything, right? This is how they operate, because they have to operate in a world where they can't just make a transfer from one bank to the other. So a lot of their business is going to be cash, a lot of front, a lot of straw companies and straw men, and a lot of Iran being involved in distributing all of this and this financial structure, helping them create this all throughout the region and throughout the West as well. I mean, we saw, for example, Israel in recent years has really bolstered its financial terrorism task force, which is basically tasked with the job of not just attacking the enemy on the battlefield, not just degrading their capabilities, whether in Gaza or in Beirut, but also hitting them in the pocket, because if you can take away the money, you could potentially stop the attacks. On the one hand, Israel did attack a number of institutions, financial institutions, as well as other places where it's said that Hezbollah has stored millions of dollars in cash and gold and other currencies. This is all aimed at undermining Hezbollah's ability to continue to operate and to continue to function. In the case of the bunker, where they say is buried under the Al-Sahel Hospital, belonged to Hassan Nasrallah, the now killed leader of Hezbollah, and where they have about $500 million in cash reserves, the reason to declassify this intelligence is because Israel is not able to attack that bunker and is not able to send troops on the ground into that bunker. Someone asked me, for example, does Israel want to seize that money? Well, to seize that money, you'd have to go in there with soldiers and get that money. Israel does not plan on sending any soldiers into downtown Beirut to get into firefights with people on the streets of Beirut. So that's not going to happen. And because it's under a hospital, Israel is not able to just go in and destroy the hospital. What we saw in Gaza in comparison, like if we think about the Shifa hospital, where you know that Hamas had a significant command and control center underneath, Israel had to go into Shifa, had to surround the hospital, had to go floor to floor, ward to ward, try to take out as many people as possible, and to prevent civilian casualties, and only then was able to operate. Israel's not going to be able to do the same thing against the Al-Sahel Hospital in Beirut. So the reason to declassify this intelligence is to show, the world, that this is what Hezbollah is doing and this is what Iran is doing. But I think it's also to show the people of Lebanon that this is how Hezbollah, your economy is in tatters. Your economy is destroyed. It's a disaster. It's no secret what's happened to Lebanon as a country, fractured society, disastrous economy. To show that there is a terrorist organization in Lebanon, in Beirut, that has $500 million in cash in a basement of a hospital is basically to say to the Lebanese people, Hezbollah and Iran have been profiteering on your backs. And it's time for you to put an end to that. And I think that Israel understands that whatever happens in the day after the war in Lebanon, it's going to require a larger mechanism that will not be something that only Israel can engineer. Israel is just operating in the south of Lebanon. It occasionally does strike from the air targets in Beirut and other places, but it doesn't believe that it's going to change all of Lebanon, right? Lebanon's a country. It needs to change itself. hopefully this type of declassification can be maybe the impetus to some extent that keeps the Lebanese people understanding they have to bring about that change. The drones are proving to be a significant problem for Israel, and this is not something that's it's not new. We saw this already a couple weeks ago, for example, on the evening of Yom Kippur, the fast day here in Israel, a drone slammed into an old age home in a suburb just north of Tel Aviv. A couple days later, there was an attack against an IDF training base for soldiers from the Golani Infantry Brigade. A drone slammed into the dining hall as the soldiers were sitting down for dinner, killing 4 and injuring 70 more. Just yesterday, on Monday in Israel, a drone slammed into an open field near Tel Aviv. So drones are proving to be a huge challenge for Israel. Now, when you compare it with our missile defense capabilities, it's striking because Israel has been able to create a really unbelievable missile defense architecture, from Iron Dome to David Sling to Arrow, and to be able to really intercept 90% plus of the missiles and rockets that are fired, whether from Gaza, now mostly from Lebanon, some from Yemen, and some from Iran as well. But drones, on the other hand, are much more difficult. Now, there's a couple of reasons why. Just technologically speaking, it is difficult to detect a drone when it is flying towards you because A, they fly low, B, they fly slow, and C, they don't always appear on the radar to be a drone. Some of these devices and unmanned vehicles are mostly not even metal, so it's difficult to even detect them. Then comes the problem. Let's even say you have detected them. How do you intercept them? They're flying too low to be intercepted by your missile defense systems, right? So in most of the cases, when Israel is intercepting the drones, they're actually using aircraft, right? Whether fighter jets or helicopters that have to be in the air to go intercept them. What happened, for example, when the drone slammed into the IDF training base, they detected 2 drones. They actually spotted them. One of them was intercepted and shot down with an air-to-air missile from an aircraft, but then they lost sight of the second drone. And their assumption was that the second drone actually crashed, when really it hadn't, which gave the IDF about a minute to be able to sound the alarms in the area and warn people. For reasons that are still under investigation, they decided not to do that. But what you see here is a very difficult, complex reality. And I think that this has to be the main focus today of the IDF technological teams, because what we're seeing is an underbelly that our enemies are able to take advantage of, and Israel does need to come up with some sort of solution here. Secretary Blinken is coming pretty much to try to achieve a number of goals, but first and foremost is, now that Sinwar is dead, Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, the Americans want to try to push again for a hostage deal that will see the release of the hostages who are alive out of the 101 who still remain in Gaza, and a ceasefire that could hopefully lead to an end to the war in Gaza. The truth be told is that in Gaza, most of the fighting is done, right? Israel has been able to achieve its military goals. Now it really is up to finding what is the political process that can preserve the military accomplishments long term. That won't be done just by the military. You need to have a new entity take over the Gaza Strip. That's going to be the focus of his conversations. We also saw at the same time Amos Hochstein, the President Biden's envoy to Lebanon and Israel. He was in Beirut yesterday, trying again to get a new diplomatic process moving there, speaking of how it would see a reinforced or bolstered UN Security Council Resolution 1701. That was the resolution that ended the 2006 Second Lebanon War, was supposed to see a demilitarized southern Lebanon, which now, as we've seen over the last few months, is anything but demilitarized. Now Israel is clearing out that area militarily by its military to take away Hezbollah's ability to operate there. But again, when Israel pulls back from Lebanon, how do we preserve that accomplishment and ensure that Hezbollah does not return to south of Lebanon? We also need a mechanism in place there. So these are the big issues that need to be worked out. I would also assume that Blinken is going to be talking with Prime Minister Netanyahu about Iran Israel has yet to retaliate to the October 1st missile assault. There's a lot of reasons why Israel has been waiting, but likely one of them is the upcoming presidential election in the US. And there's a lot of need for coordination between Israel and America on any attack that Israel would want to launch in a big scale against Iran. The THAAD, the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, the American one, recently deployed here in Israel. So it's now operational on the ground. That's America's act of support for Israel to help it intercept and defend itself. These are just three of the big issues that they'll need to be discussing.